being constantly refilled with the Spirit. Because you cannot get one dose and live on the power of that dose for your whole life. You cannot, because this world wears us down. It squeezes the spirituality out of us. That's what the world does. So we need to constantly be refurbished. We need to be filled again and again and again. You know, when we look at the Old Testament, in the Old Covenant, when the high priest goes into the Holy of Holies, he has purified himself extensively, and then he goes into the Holy of Holies. And if you notice, you know, there is no place for him to sit down in the Holy of Holies. The Bible does not mention a chair. It does not mention a chair in the Holy of Holies. Because under the Old Covenant, there was no sitting down in the presence of God. Because you had so many rituals that you had to follow. You had to go through all these procedures before you could go into the presence of God. So there was no place for the high priest to sit down in the presence of God, in the presence of Almighty God. And the requirements on the high priest were so stringent. So strict. He had to follow those to the letter. He had to follow them. And we also know that the high priest wore bells. There were bells on his dress, you know.
Yeah.
And we all know the purpose of the bells, right? Because there are bells on his dress, and there's a rope tied to his body, because he's the only one who enters into the presence of Almighty God once a year.
Yeah.
Once a year. And everyone else is standing outside. And why has he entered the presence of God? To make atonement for the sins of the people, right? And he enters that place with such quaking, because it's such a stringent place. He enters with quaking and fear after following all these rituals. And, you know, I told you about the bells. And so when the people outside hear the sound of the bells, they know everything is okay, because it means that the priest is moving around doing his job. That's what it means. As long as they can hear the sound of the bells tinkling, it means everything is okay. The priest is doing what he went in there to do. But suppose they stop, the sound of the bells tinkling stop. What does that mean? When the sound of the bells tinkling is not heard, what does that mean? It means that he has been struck dead by God. That's what it means. This is the God that we are worshipping, you know. In the Old Testament, he went in once a year, and as long as the bells were tinkling, the people outside knew everything was okay. And he would come out after a while. But if the bells stopped tinkling, it means he had been, because of the sin in his life, he had been struck dead. And the people outside would pull on the rope and pull the body out of the presence of God. That is the presence of God. And yet, we are told to sit down and to recollect ourselves and to realign ourselves in the presence of God, because we need to do that. This world, you know, drains us. This world drains us. So we constantly need to realign ourselves and reevaluate ourselves and strengthen ourselves and recharge ourselves. We always need to do that. And we cannot do that when we're busy. We cannot do that when we're busy and getting on with our life. We need to take time. We need to move away from the world and get into the presence of God and just sit there for some time. Otherwise, we can't do this. We can't do this. So that's what we can do. So, because why can we do that? Because Jesus paid the price. We can do that. We can sit in God's presence now because Jesus paid the price. That's what happened 2,000 years ago. Jesus paid that terrible price for us. That's why we can sit in His